Who did the assemblage on that? Local Baltimore brokers
They
picked
did.
that up, put that together?
They did. I had nothing to do with the land, but
Wow.
I own it now.
Okay, the Deal Ranch podcast, Neil Wilson. So you are principal of RealtyLink development here in Greenville. So you guys are amazing business. I'm looking forward to hearing, but vertically integrated full service real estate development company. You guys have a vast array of asset classes you work in, and then you guys are kind of stretched out across the country too. So I'm excited to hear your story, how you and your brother built the business, but do you want to give an intro on yourself and the business as a whole? We can get rolling.
Sure. So, yes, you're right, Neil Wilson, RealtyLink, and started the company along with my twin brother, Phil, 26 years ago, so 1998, and been through 4 or 5 recessions and some really good times as well. And you are correct, we are not geographically restricted against development. We are sort of more tenant-driven. So if the tenant wants us to go to Seattle, we go to Seattle. If they want us to go to Miami, we go to Miami. So that's sort of how we're structured.
I love it. So starting before RealtyLink, you're a hard person to find some info on online, but what was your foundation in real estate before RealtyLink? Can you give me the story maybe from college days to kind of how to 98?
Yeah, I'd be glad to, Matt. So we started off in a family business. I actually grew up in the jewelry industry. From the time I was 13, 14 till the time we was 40, and we sold that company out to a much larger company. We did wholesale manufacturing as well as retail. We had two jewelry stores located in Greenville. We sold them all out. And prior to RealtyLink, only real estate experience was the old Ivy's department store in Greenville, South Carolina. Ivy's had merged with Dillard's, and this was a downtown location. Didn't fit the malls at the time that was being developed. So it was a 3-story building that we renovated and started in 1992, and also, oddly enough, sold it in 98. So at age 40, I was sort of unemployed. I had a little bit of money in the bank, not a whole lot, and my brother and I was sitting at the desk one day, and he said, "What do you want to do?" And I said, we had nothing to do at that time. And decided to go with the real estate business. And we started off as a development company. Never really did a lot of brokerage work. It's just not what we want to do. We actually get more gratification seeing something come out of the ground and develop versus putting a sign in somebody's yard or somebody's window or whatever. Mm-hmm. So we started off as a development company.
Wow. So what was the original idea in 98? Did you have customers that you planned on developing for? Was it fee development? Did you guys want to own the deal and lease it? What was the structure?
Good question. So in that department store mixed-use development I mentioned, the old Ivy's building, we had Atlanta Bread as a restaurant on the ground floor. And Atlanta Bread was a competitor to St. Louis Bread that later on became Panera.
That's right.
So Jerry Kavoris and his brother Basil Kavoris, we got to know them through that transaction. So me and my brother hopped in a car and drove to Atlanta. That was their corporate headquarters, and we asked for some development opportunities. The first one we did was in Cherrydale, which is part of Greenville. I did Atlanta Bread and the facilities there. I think we made about $8 an hour. We had no idea what we were doing. And then later on, we did another one in Hendersonville, North Carolina. Same 2 tenants, Atlanta Bread and Fazoli's. And we sold it and actually made a few dollars off of it.
Okay.
And then my brother Bill started a relationship with RTM, which is at that time the largest franchise in RV's system. And they gave us an opportunity because their main source of capital was a company called GE Capital. Mm-hmm. And there was a big gap between RealtyLink and GE Capital, as you can imagine.
Sure.
And so all the deals that were very difficult to do, they would hand over to us. And it would be land assemblage. It would be excess land. It would have some unusual environmental issues that we would have to deal with. So they really, RTM really made us a pretty good development company. They taught us a lot because all their deals were challenging. And you learn from those challenges. And later on, a lot of stuff that we learned in the early days is still applicable today.
Wow. So as far as those, they asked you to kind of take down those more difficult deals, difficult being kind of needed more boots on the ground and get into the weeds on the deals to make them or those developments, right?
It would be various things, Matt. If you think about, say, Arby's needed 1 acre, but the seller had 3 acres, then you had to figure out what to do with the other 2 acres, find 2 more tenants.
Sure.
Or if they needed an acre and where they can only get a half acre, we have to figure out the other half acre to buy it from somebody or buy another 2 acres or 3 acres to split it up to get the deal done. Or if we had environmental issues, we had to learn how to hire consultants that to get it to a point where we got another no further action letter from DHEC.
Wow.
So they taught us the ropes, so to speak, on how to get something developed. And they taught us how to get to the civil engineering, the architect, the lease documents, any kind of decoration, et cetera. We had to learn that as well. Wow. So probably did 50 RVs and over a period of 4 or 5 years. And my partner, Jack, joined the company in 2000. Jack had a bigger background in real estate development. He came from Ryan's Steakhouses. So Jack came in with 200 deals under his belt, so we learned a lot from him as well.
I bet. So what were the structures of those RV deals as far as like kind of how you guys made money? Was it just fee income? Was it fee development or how?
No, we are the landlord.
Okay.
And currently right now we're probably a landlord of 700 tenants,
wow.
800 tenants, somewhere around through there. And of course we would structure a lease that would be predicated on whatever the cost was multiplied by whatever cap rate that we felt like we needed to put in place in order to make a 200 basis point spread.
Wow.
And I'll explain that a little bit better. So if RVs was selling at a 7 cap, we would develop at a 9 cap. That would give us 200 basis points. And the rent would float until the final project costs were received. And at that point, you multiply the total project cost times that 9 cap, and that would be the rent number on an annual basis.
Interesting. Wow. So did they come to you with locations that they had in mind of
yes.
where they wanted to? Okay.
Yes.
And then you would go put the deal together.
In the early days, it'd be a little bit of both. Okay. Sometimes we would find a site and we'd start cold calling, fast food restaurants or, all the automotive users, Bridgestone, whoever, or all the cellular stores back then, Sprint and Nextel and Verizon and AT&T.
Singular.
Yeah, you just start dialing, put a deal together. But as of recent, and I say recent, probably 10 or more years, I don't know. I couldn't tell you when was the last time I got in a car to go look for real estate because the phone rings, oddly enough, and most of the time I answer, and they say, we want you to look at this market or look at this location. And which is the best part of the business because they've sort of already signed off on it, and they've just looked for somebody to develop it.
Interesting. So after those first 50 locations, right, you kind of cut your teeth and you really start to understand the business. How did you start to scale into these different asset classes? And after early 2000s, and Jack comes in 2000 or
yes.
2001. How did you see the business progressing? Did you kind of have an idea of where you were growing, or were you growing organic and different opportunities came to you? So kind of what happens next in the
so for, I'm going to say about 19 years, all we did was retail restaurants. Around 2008, 9, 10, in that range is really when the Great Depression or the Great Recession hit. We had just started putting our toes in the water and doing shopping centers. And we got real fortunate that we very transparent with our lenders. We were still able to borrow money in 2010, and our company sort of took off at that point. So that was the first part of the company that went from just doing out parcel development to actually shopping centers. And we've done shopping centers all over the Midwest, Southwest, and the Southeast. Now, fast forward from that point, everybody figured out there's this company called Amazon, and you started to see a lot of more retail items being delivered versus being purchased at a mall. And we were barely smart enough to get in a room and say, guys, I think the world's changing, and I think we need to change. So I was the first one that ventured out of retail, and still do some retail, but not a lot. And I landed on entertainment with a company called TopGolf. And then the other part of my business, 9 to 5, is ambient industrial warehouses, distribution, logistics, centers, that kind of stuff. And so it was real great watching the company transition from retail, restaurants to industrial entertainment, and had a great run with TopGolf. I think we've done 15 of them all over the country. When I said Seattle earlier, we did one right outside of Seattle in Renton. Did one in Baltimore, Philadelphia, Boston, Doral, Far, Texas, Greenville, Greensboro, Columbia, Durham. Pretty much everywhere they said for us to go, we went. And we were able to have a pretty good run with them.
Absolutely. I think that's how someone, maybe Jim Boyd at United, pitched me to you as a TopGolf developer, is kind of how you guys came across, which is cool. And I'm kind of interested to dive in on that, but going a little bit back in time to that 2008 period. I had read some article that you guys were somehow able to keep all of your staff, which is kind of very, I would say, rare for a real estate company at that time, especially a developer.
Yeah.
So 2 questions in that earlier stage of the business. So one, what was 2008 like, and how were you able to keep all your employees?
Well, it was a near-death experience, that's for sure. We took some wing shots that didn't take any head shots.
Yeah.
Well, we had a decision to make, Matt. One was, and there's a lot of serious questions and meetings around what to do, because we never been through anything like that. I don't think any real estate development company has experienced anything quite like that. The world's just stopped. It's subprime meltdown, and I don't know how many millions of homes were foreclosed on and how many jobs were lost, and the banking industry just shut down London, and we had, what we call the good, bad, and ugly. We had good projects. We had some projects that hadn't started, that we already bought the land. We had projects that were halfway through construction, but the rent hasn't been stabilized. And so when we met, one decision was just to sort of shut everything down and deal with as small a team as we could. The other idea is that we want to be standing on third base when the game starts over again.
Right.
And that's the decision we made. We're very proud of it. That, it's, when you work with a group like we have, they're really family. It's a real sweet family. And you see these people every day. You really spend more time with them than you do your waking hours at home. Yeah. And so you get to know these people on a personal level and on a business level, of course, as well. So we got the group together and said we're going to go to 4 days a week, but we're going to keep everybody together.
Wow.
And it worked because what happened is other developers that went the path of, shrinking our company, and in a lot of cases, some just went out of business. But the retailers we started doing business with, the TJ Maxx's, the Ross, the Ultas, the Hobby Lobbies, PetSmart, Petco, et cetera, all those tenants realized that, hey, these guys are still in business. And they were publicly traded companies. They needed to do deals.
Of course.
And they need to do deals where people could still borrow money and still have the same people answering the phones.
Wow.
So it was a remarkable thing that in 2010, for example, the phone started ringing again. And it would be so-and-so at TJ Maxx. I want you to go, Pikeville, Kentucky. Or I want you to go, wherever. And we got very transparent with our lenders. We had good equity sources at that time. And so we were able to put a loan package together and borrow money and start developing. Wow. And we came out of it in a big way. The company probably went up several 100% from 2008, 9, and 10 to 2018, 19.
Wow. So do you think keeping that staff on board for those couple of years, albeit obviously it was a gamble and probably very tough to do, but allowed you to get a more front runner position when things pick back up?
Exactly. You nailed it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it told the retail community that we were a survivor. And not only survive, but we can thrive. And so it worked. And we've had several more recessions. If you count COVID as one, if you count what we're going through now as another recession, then, yeah, we still have the same, well, not only the same team members, a lot of the same team members, but we also have, another 30, 40 employees to go with them. Yeah. So the family got bigger.
Wow. Early on, what was the division in responsibilities between you and your brother? Like, how did that function? Did one more focus on development, or one more focus on capital structure of deals, or were you guys responsible for different, different restaurant relationships too? Like, how did you guys work hand in glove, and what was the difference in responsibilities, I would say?
Well, me, Phil, and Jack, the three partners, all did our own transactions independent of the other one. There's always a lot of collaboration with the different departments as well as the partners. But I was expected to produce deals, and I had to manage the deals from cradle to grave. So it was up to me to find the tenants, find the land, number one, or have the land brought to me, find the tenants, put the budgets together, work with the construction department, tightening up the numbers, raising equity, going to the lender, putting packages together to get the loans approved. And that was the same situation for my brother Phil and Jack. They were expected to do the same thing. If possible, then in most cases we had different asset classes that we work with, especially now. So I stick mainly to industrial and entertainment, but Phil does some mixed-use projects. He's done a lot of, like I said, RVs and single-tenant transactions, and he's doing multifamily, build-to-rent neighborhoods. So we're very diverse now. My partner, Jack, for the most part, has done self-storage and Bojangles and 7-Elevens, single-tenant stuff.
So as the business evolves, was there one point in time where going from just doing 50 RVs to doing TopGolfs and everything you guys are doing in apartments, and Alice was just talking to me about the new capital raising division. There's a lot going on in RL Cole. When did you kind of feel the scale or feel like you were growing, or how did you see it over time kind of evolving?
Well, this is a unique statistic. I don't know many companies can say this, but we haven't stopped growing. So we did a 15-year look back in 2008 to 2023, and that includes 2 recessions, if you count COVID. And we grew at a 23.6% rate year over year, and it includes 2 recessions. So the true growth, if you take out the recessions and COVID, is probably closer to 30%. So we went from being a very small company to right now approximately $2 billion under asset management. That's our properties along with the banks and investors, of course. So it turned out to be what I never would have dreamed of. It turned out to be a really amazing ride.
It sounds like it.
So.
Was everything property managed? You guys property manage every property that you own. Was that always vertically integrated, or had you used third-party management before along the way? We
do. We have our in-house property management that really does not do anything, for the most part, for other landlords or property owners. We pretty much handle all of our assets. In addition to that, we got asset management that helps with a business plan after something developed. And, of course, we got construction, finance, legal, marketing, et cetera. So we're pretty vertically integrated.
Yeah. Wow. So before bringing it to kind of modern date, and we can dive in, how did you structure deals early on in regards to like partners? Did you JV a lot of deals? Like, did you get equity from other partners, or did you guys just keep rolling everything back into the business, or was it tough to find capital partners for all the projects? And how I guess would be part 2.
We have done several JVs, but for the most part, we're the buyer. we find the tenants and we get the loans, and we have to raise equity.
Yep.
And for a long time, it was just friends and family.
Oh, wow.
High net worth individuals that we knew, and it could be a guy that could put $100,000 in, could be a guy that put $1 million in.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we got 700 outside friends and family investors. But more recently,
Wow.
the deals are larger and requires a lot more capital. So it's hard to raise $15 million, for example, on a single project from friends and family.
Mm-hmm.
So now we're doing more business with institutional type investors, which is a lot more complex, a lot more control they have than the friends and family network, because they trust us and they put money in, and they know we're going to do what we do, and after the sale, they get their capital back and their preferred returns. In the institutional world, it's quite a bit different. I mean, you're looking at 50-page documents, 100-page documents, and a lot of reporting, a lot of financial reporting, So it's just a different world. And it's okay. It allows us to do bigger projects.
What was the evolution of that, of kind of finding, hey, we may need to go the institutional route, and then who spearheaded doing the capital raising for that part of the business?
Good question. My brother Phil was the first one to work with AIG, and that was on a project in Myrtle Beach called Coastal North, which had pretty much every retailer you could think of, including Publix as an anchor. It was a massive project. I think we built it and sold it for $70-something million. So that was just phase one.
Mm-hmm.
It had 3 phases to it. So all 3 phases were over $100 million. And AAG was a very difficult company. The way they're structured, and we had to learn their way. They were not going to learn our way. We had to learn theirs. And then later on, Phil did with BentallGreenOak, $200 million in equity, and the first few deals was Bank of America, and that was for our refrigerated cold storage company called RL Cold, RL being short for RealtyLink. Mm-hmm. They're based in Atlanta, and that was BentallGreenOak. So we're working with several other institutional companies. It's the easiest, quickest way to raise large amounts of equity. Mm-hmm. They get a higher return than we like to pay, but it allows us to do larger deals.
Yeah, that makes sense. So as far as evaluating new markets, a 2-part kind of question. You guys grow, and you started in Greenville, but now there are 6 regional offices too. So what in your mind told you it was time to, like, hey, we need boots on the ground, or what spurred the growth of the regional offices? And 2, did that allow you to evaluate those markets better? Like, how do you find and evaluate markets and deals across the country, and how do the regional offices fit into that plan too?
It's a couple of different reasons. The first being is don't open a regional office just to open one. Mm-hmm. It's really about the person that's running it.
Got it.
If they fit our culture, our way of doing business, that checks that first box. And you're right. If you're in markets that, say we have an office in Raleigh, for example, it's a big market. It's much easier for somebody local to know what goes on every day in Raleigh versus Neil in Greenville.
That's right.
And that's the second box, that it's got to be a market we want to be in. Mm-hmm. And then they've got to have some background experience, because we don't want somebody with training wheels on. We want them to sort of know what they're doing. Mm-hmm. And what we provide is the infrastructure, all the construction management, the debt, the equity, the asset management, property management, just all the different departments. We're sort of a mothership. Mm-hmm. So they could be leaning me. It could be some 2 or 3 people in one office. Well, we've got 70 here. So It's just a big difference. And the last reason, Matt, is because if you're going to create a company that has value that can stand the test of time, it's not one office with a couple of deal makers. Mm-hmm. It's really, you got to have that scale. You got to have that infrastructure of that team that creates a value to the RealtyLink brand. That makes it sellable at some point in the future. That somebody would want to come in and that maybe has a lot of different weapons in the arsenal, but they don't have a development arm, and they may represent a lot of different tenants, but they're not a developer. So there's a consolidation in that area at some point. Then they may turn around and say, well, we really need a development arm to go with our client, to help our clients. And when they look around, we're one of the few, if not the only company that can cover large amounts of territory with our regional offices. So that creates a value within itself.
So were the expansion of those offices, do you think, did you seek them out of, hey, we want to put an office in Raleigh or Charlotte or Charleston, or were they organic of you had someone you were working with there and it kind of came to, hey, would you be open to expanding? Which version do you think?
I think in every case, they've come to us.
Oh, wow.
And said that, we'd like to join the RealtyLink team. We just don't wake up thinking about, I need an office in, Texas.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, Milwaukee.
Yeah.
They come to us. And it's most of the time because we have done transactions with them. Mm-hmm. Either they were really good skilled brokers or really good developers that they've got, 10, 15 years of maybe working for a company doing development, but not having a piece of the pie. And they say, I would rather, go in business for myself. I don't have the infrastructure and the know-how with debt and equity and project management. They have some weaknesses, but they know how to get deals done. And they come to us, and we, like I said, if it's the right person at the right time in an area that we feel like we need a presence in, then we do what's called a service agreement. We put a document in front of them and negotiate it, and off to the races.
Wow, that's fascinating. How did the TopGolf developments kind of formalize? Like, what was the first time it came to you, and also, can you break down kind of how the TopGolf business model works for, say, like they lease back from you, or like how the development project works?
Sure, be glad to.
Yeah.
So to answer the first part of the question, we were at the Las Vegas ICSC show.
Okay.
And one of the brokers that we've done a lot of business with for a very long period of time had a property here in Greenville under contract, 75 acres off of Pelham Road. And TopGolf needs 12 acres, not 75. So they were looking for a developer. And I think they interviewed 3 developers, and for whatever reason, I got chosen. And I took advantage of it. I said, okay, I'm going to learn about this company. I didn't know a whole lot about them at that time. They only had 30-something locations.
What year was this?
Greenville. What year?
Yeah, what year?
2016 or 17.
Okay, cool.
And so I got to know the company, and in particular Michael Canfield, who's a great guy. I really think a lot of Michael. And flew out to Dallas and said, I like your concept. Is it possible we could do some more transactions together? Well, they had pretty much got started off of a company called EPR, which is a publicly traded REIT in Kansas City, Entertainment Properties REIT. Great company. They were the largest landlord, and they funded the first 30 some odd locations. So they was at that time probably had $1 billion worth of TopGolfs. And they was sort of wanting to slow down some, but TopGolf was first to market, so they wanted to move fast. And we sort of stepped in that same footprint. And how it's structured is a little unique because they have a master real estate group in Dallas, Retail Connection, that farms out all of the states to brokers that will find real estate, and they send it to Retail Connection. Retail Connection sends it to TopGolf, and if it gets traction, they start looking for a developer. And we step in, usually take assignment to the purchase agreement. It's usually already negotiated by TopGolf and the seller. And it's a lease, so like very, very normal triple net lease, 20 years. And in addition to that, we fund the project, and they manage all of the construction. So that's the only client other than Hobby Lobby does some of that. But they hire a general contractor that will manage the construction process, and they send the draws to TopGolf because TopGolf has the construction contract, and then TopGolf forwards the draws to us, and we fund it through our banking relationships. Wow. So it's a reverse build to suit. And they manage the site work. Other than it was a very large site, and we manage the site work. It's very large. But it's a unique relationship. Great company. Sort of caught lightning in a bottle. Really helped the golf industry during COVID. I mean, everybody started playing golf again, which is really great for the sport. Right. But good, honest, hardworking people, very honorable, always do the right thing. And it's been a great relationship.
So you said they do or do not manage the site work portion?
They manage the site work if it's a 12-acre site and they need 12 acres.
Okay.
If it's a 40-acre site, we would manage the site work, and we have a delivery based on this on what sometimes we put in the entrance road and the traffic signal, and then we turn over the site to them, upgrade it with utilities in place.
Wow. So where the process starts for them, so that they have this in-house real estate team, they use brokers around the country to identify to bring them lots of, hey, TopGolf could go here. How involved do they get in that initial, because you guys are taking down that lot, you're buying the land, obviously, to develop it. What is that, the TopGolf real estate team looking for? Are they like a first phase negotiating price or seeing if price is feasible? Or are they just saying, hey, is this location a target for us? And if it is and it checks the box, then it comes to you guys to underwrite and evaluate? What is the process?
That is correct. They're looking for a market. And I may not have the numbers exact, but look at a market for a 72-bay venue of 1 million people or more.
Got it.
And usually they like interstate because that lengthens your travel time, your drive time. You can pull to a 20-mile drive over to TopGolf is 20 minutes by interstate. Mm-hmm. If you're on a limited access highway with 14 traffic signals, it's 40 minutes. Yeah. So they like interstate. And
the drive-by traffic to see it, I'm sure, helps.
That helps too. That helps too. It's just certain criteria, all of which I'm not known. They got to be so many miles away from a competing TopGolf. They don't want to cannibalize they don't want them too close together. But say the city of Boston probably can handle 3 or 4. Wow. But town the size of Greenville can only handle 1.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. So when you look at a site that maybe is larger than that 12 acres, call it a 50 or 100, where it could support do hotel or mixed use, how impactful is TopGolf brings a deal to you and it's larger than what they need, and you guys have the chance to develop around it or develop the rest of that parcel? How it seems from outset that would be pretty nice to be able to anchor with the TopGolf and then have other development nearby. How much does that change when you market the other property nearby?
I think that's one asset we bring to the table is going back to the Arby's days when we dealt with excess land. We built a great roster of names and tenants, et cetera. So I use Greenville as an example. We did Main Event. We sold them a parcel, which is also an entertainment concept we work with. Sold a hotel site. We're doing a shooting range, and we did 3 industrial buildings on a part of the property, but the back part of the property that was owned for industrial. So it's that that knowledge of finding tenants or buyers, and it's the knowledge of developing industrial. Or we got 1 hotel parcel we sold in Greenville for Wood Spring Suites. And so we can find them.
Wow. What has been your favorite projects to develop? We can dive into a couple deal stories at the end, but for you, what keeps you so interested in the business? Obviously, it's your baby. You built it, and you built a career for so many people. Obviously, it's their home too, which is amazing. But what do you like most about the development business, and what has kept you interested year over year? And what do you get out of bed to focus on? Well,
never 2 days alike, that's for sure. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're putting out fires, and sometimes you actually turn it over to a tenant collecting rent checks. So it's a variety of things that really keep you interested, and it's the people you work with too. It's very unusual because sometimes I'll be thinking about something that needs to be done before the end of the day, and I'll walk over to that department and go, I did that yesterday. It's the left hand knows what the right hand's doing.
Sure.
And that's always gratifying, that when you put a good team together with good culture, you don't have to micromanage. You just you got good people that's doing great things, and dealing with every kind of good issue or bad issue. They don't duck away from it. They take responsibility and accountability. And that's always refreshing. You know, everybody returns their phone calls, even the ones they don't want to make. And everybody's have the same goals, you know, I think, is to build a very successful company, because it's one of the few companies that I know of that it's going to live past my generation. There's going to be another, and we're working on that now. There's a group of executives that we will have some in place now. We'll have a few more in the future.
Oh, wow.
And we'll go we'll go play some bad golf, and then the company will still be running by some very quality people.
Yeah. Wow. In looking back on building this amazing machine, what do you think were the hardest times in building it? Or what was the biggest, maybe personal challenge? Because your skill set has to evolve as a leader over time. More people you add, your role changes.
That's right.
The responsibility changes, especially working with these institutional capital partners. Things get a little bit more serious too. Not that it's not with friends and family. It's all varying levels, I suppose. But what do you think were the biggest challenges? I
think today, Matt, we are probably experiencing the most challenging time that we've had as a company. I thought there would never be anything as bad as 2008, 9, and 10. But if you think about real estate and loan comes, properties that are cash flow, and loans come up for renewal, and you're at a 3.5% rate, you look at the banker and he goes, well, we're at 8 now, 8.5. Well, there goes all your cash flow.
Yeah.
And it's not paying down the principal necessarily, it's just paying more interest to have the same project.
Yeah.
Or if something's under construction and the construction is not complete, and like TopGolf, for example, it takes a year to build one. So you may start on a TopGolf in Durham at a 3.5% rate. By the time it's complete, you can't lock the rate until you do have stabilization. The rate changes. And we had, 12 rate increases in 16 months. So what you thought was going to be a very, very profitable venture, it turns out to be you're just paying a bunch more interest for less, and evaluation change. So you're going to make less money and pay more interest. And debt is half the banks have got their pencils down, and the other half are the leverage has changed from say 70-75% to 60-65%. So you're raising more equity. Mm-hmm. You're not selling as much. Because the valuations are not good, and we're not good sellers in a predator market. Yeah. So we're not returning equity like we thought we would. We're not making the money like we thought we would. So it's just this year and half of last year, I guess, for the most part, has probably been a challenging year in my life, in the company's life as well.
So how do you navigate that? What's the solution? Obviously, you got to stay in the deal. Yeah.
What's the plan?
What's the plan?
Yeah. Well, there's always a plan for every developer out there. I wish everybody the best, because it's not just us. It's the world of developers that's getting hit. And we're working on some. We're lucky from the standpoint that we've got enough assets on the book, that we got some built up equity, that like I said, we're not sellers hardly in this market. And let's just say, just to use a number, we got $300 million in locked up equity. We're going to have to borrow against that to get to, say, the end of 2025. Maybe $40-50 million that we need to offset the losses, the negative income, to get to 2025 and hope the fourth quarter 2025. And what we're hoping for is the feds understand that there's got to be a break point. This can't go on forever. And the world always goes back to normal in some time period.
Sure.
We just hope it's quicker versus later. So we're hoping to see some rate reductions sooner versus later. And that starts easing the pain.
So stay in the game.
Just stay in the game.
Stay in the game.
Yeah.
Before we get to wrapping up and talking about a couple deal stories, one thing I wanted to ask you, Alice toured me around the office. This is our capital raising division. This is property management. This is our in-house legal. This is construction. Here's cold storage. Here are our asset managers. So you have everyone in-house that's vertically integrated, which obviously can help in every regard of being a developer, but kind of turns you to this powerhouse. What was the importance to you over time obviously when you were just starting, it was just doing a couple Arby's deal, you and your brother, right, to now we have this huge office downtown and in everyone under one roof. What was the importance for you in creating the business fully vertically integrated? What was the importance of bringing everyone under one roof to do that?
Well, for one reason, we control that process. If you think about, subbing out construction management, for example, we believe if they're on our payroll and we all have the same vision, that we're going to get a better response from that person down the hall than somebody that's just a third party, project manager that really is from one job to the next. He's not as involved as that person day to day. So by controlling that process, it makes it a lot more seamless to the client. And that's really what it's about. It's about the tenant and making that tenant happy. And if you do third-party everything, which some companies do, then you're not really controlling that process. And if you get the wrong project manager or property manager, whatever it is, then, you got an unhappy tenant. And if that tenant's unhappy, then, you're not probably going to do many deals with them.
So it almost, in a way, just creates a faster, smoother, ideally, route for most of the projects, right? You have to go in and out, conversations left or in-house, and also quality control, too.
100% correct, 100%. That the tenant gets to know the people within our four walls, and they get that relationship. I may put the transaction together, but there's going to be multiple people at RealtyLink involved in that. And they get to know those people. And quite often I get an email at the end of a project saying it was great to work with so-and-so. It was great to work with so-and-so. You don't have that personal touch, so to speak, if it's, two guys in another office building in Dallas managing something or wherever. They all pull for the same outcome.
And it keeps everyone accountable internally. Asset management has to be sharp, but property management has to do, because they get to hear from it internally, which I think is a good byproduct too, right?
Yeah, every department blends well with the other one. Yeah. Because even if it's the construction department, there's a turnover to property management. And property management also has to pull in asset management that has to, in turn, deal with that from a cash flow perspective, and then it's just various bleed over from department to department, and they all work well in the same sandbox. And that's a great thing.
That's awesome. Before chatting about a couple deal stories and wrapping up, is there anything we missed kind of about the landscape of the business in modern time? Any department, any service that we didn't touch on through chatting so far?
Not that I can think of, Matt. You've done a great job.
I think we've talked about a bunch.
Yeah, we have.
In looking back on your life as a deal maker and building the business, is there any deal story that comes to mind? I know we chatted about TopGolf a little bit, but any deal that was significant, maybe challenging or impactful, that you guys put together or developed that you think would be cool to share?
Well, I mean, every deal's different. I mean, and I didn't put the land together, but the Baltimore TopGolf is one of the ones I think is very unique. The brokers and so forth up in the Baltimore area did a phenomenal job finding this real estate. It's, I think, one of the best real estate plays I've ever seen. It's everybody knows the Baltimore Ravens NFL team. Well, there was an animal shelter, oddly enough, adjacent to it. It had 8 acres. And TopGolf was able to get it under control with the city of Baltimore. So that gave them 8 acres. And then Caesars Casino is on the other side.
That's right.
And they have a parking deck of about 1,100 parking spaces, of which they didn't need 1,100 parking spaces. So that served for their parking lot. So they've got, and it's not only that, it's double interstates at the inner harbor. So, I wish I could hold that one long enough for 20 years. And you got waterfront property beside the Ravens Stadium and Caesars Casino. I mean, what could be better than that? So that's probably one of the favorite pieces of property that I've worked on as far as developing. It's a very cool venue. Very cool.
Who did the assemblage on that? Local Baltimore brokers?
They did.
Put that together?
They did. I had nothing to do with the land, but I own it now.
Oh, man. Last couple questions for you.
Sure.
I love that. What is the team focused on now? Obviously, getting through and staying on these deals, staying in the game, like we were saying. But is there anything else on the radar of what the team is currently focused on?
Yeah, I think the two categories that we're more focused on is industrial and multifamily, but there's been a lot of multifamily built over the last year or so. So we're really selective in that area. It's predominantly going to be Southeast based because obviously that's the growth of the U.S. right now, is everything is heading towards the Southeast. When I was growing up, you didn't want to tell somebody you was from the South. You know? Now you can brag about it. So that's changed in my lifetime. But it's just, for the most part, Southeastern based and very particular. I mean, I use Savannah as a market, even though we don't have a project going on there. You can't hardly miss in that market. I mean, it's just, the growth there is phenomenal. Hyundai, Gulfstream, I mean, phenomenal market. And there's a lot of similar markets in the Southeast and Florida, et cetera, the Carolinas that can still handle multifamily. And of course, the other is industrial, and industrial is still a great market. We're focused in the Greenville Spartanburg area because that's our hometown, number one. We understand it very well. And we've got the inland port here that is served from the Charleston port. And then we're focused in the Charleston market for industrial. And then Savannah is the other. Those are the three markets primarily that we are focused on for industrial. I think all three of them are great markets. And they actually, in a reverse order, Savannah's probably the best market, Charleston's second, and Greenville third. Those are three phenomenal markets. You just think I find the right piece of land at the right number, and the tenants will show up.
That's right. Simple as that.
Yeah.
This kind of, you took a piece of this question from that one, but you guys have developed so many different asset classes. You have so many different services in-house, and you've developed in so many different markets. Where do you see the future of the company? And you already maybe spoke about it a little bit, maybe other people being more involved in leadership as time goes on. But is there any asset class, service, market, besides the ones we just chatted about, that you guys haven't done? Is there any product you haven't done? Is there any market you haven't been in that you would like to do at some point?
Yeah, for the most part, we have elected not to really enter into the office market, build office buildings, et cetera, which turned out to be, not by necessarily being smart, maybe by being lucky, but, that's the asset class we're glad we're not in. And we still love single tenant transactions. You never get tired of those. They're easy to do, very predictable. You can't miss your numbers by a big margin on a single tenant deal, and they still make pretty good money. Shopping centers, I don't see us doing a lot more shopping centers in the future, even though I'm working on one now. It's just harder and harder to make those numbers work.
Sure.
The tenants are still wanting to be $8 a square foot, and they need to be at $15 a square foot. It's tough. Ambient industrial, cold storage, multifamily to a limited degree, build-to-rent neighborhoods. I think that's probably our bread and butter. But if one asset class, that's the good thing about it, we're so diverse. One asset class gets overheated or the demand's not there, then we can pivot. We got something else we can work on. If industrial, which I don't see it slowing down anytime soon, but if industrial did slow down and multifamily got in favor again, we can pivot from industrial to multifamily or the other way around. That's the great thing about being diversified.
Absolutely. Last question. Who, along the way, you've been in business for so many years and you guys have done such a good job. Who do you think helped you the most along the way in your career? Was there any, maybe mentors? Obviously, you worked so closely with the other partners here, but is there anyone in your mind that stood out that you valued, I suppose, in your career over time or learned a lot from?
Well, I mean, obviously, I go to my two partners first, my partner Jack and my brother Phil. Jack, we've been partners for 20 plus years. I mean, a lot of marriages don't last 20-something years. Not to say it's not long with my brother Phil. I mean, we've been sort of lifelong partners in various businesses. And, it's always good to sit down and get their opinion. And it's great having 3 people as a partnership, because if 2 votes yes, 1 votes no, it's an easy decision.
Right.
The answer is yes. Or somebody 2 votes no, the answer is no. And there's been a lot of votes over a long period of time.
I bet.
And a lot of conversation, It's been great. They've been really good partners to work with, and I'm very proud of both of them. So I'm glad to say that.
I love it. Neil, I think that's a great place to wrap. Is there any part of the RealtyLink story that we missed, or is there anything else that you wanted to add on?
I'll close with Dabo's famous quote, "The best is yet to come."
That's right. Thanks for coming on, Neil. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it a lot.